What is up, guys? This is Simon from Postcard Gaming, and this is going to be another commentated duel replay of the Xiangjian deck in action, now known as Swordsoul in the TCG, as of a couple days ago, I believe. So I have to go back and redo all of my thumbnails, which is a good time for me. But yeah, I mean, the name is pretty solid. I'm a fan of it. Definitely easier to pronounce for a lot of us. So I'm going to be playing the Swordsoul Tenyi deck. And then my opponent here is Grand Lamb, who you may recognize from the non-meta tournament features that were uploaded to this channel a couple weeks ago. So you can check those out if you're interested. He is playing the Dragon Link deck with some new tech cards from Burst of Destiny, which we will cover when we get there. So without further ado, let's just jump in. This was a pretty long testing session of a couple matches. So I think this is game 6 or something out of like 12 or 13 we did. And I'm actually going to cover 2 matches today, back to back. So I think four to 6 games total, and they're going to be pretty quick. So I'm not going to spend too much time on each one. My first hand in this game, I get to go first, and I open the 2-card Tenyi combo that gets Qiaofeng on the field, and then I have Longyuan as starter and Ash Blossom. So pretty solid hand. Lamb is opening Apsarouter, Black Metal, Pot of Desires, Chamber Dragon Maid, and Destiny Hero Dasher. So if you haven't guessed already, this is part of the new engine, but I will talk about that probably in game 2 when it actually hits the field. Spoilers, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do the standard Tenyi combo. I'm going to fast forward through this because I covered this in the combo video. This establishes a light Qiaofeng on the field without the normal summon. And yeah, this is the point at where, like, I think I've been trying this out, and this was the first game that I'd managed to stick this in the field, game 1. I don't know how I feel about doing this blind, because a lot of cards like Nibiru and Gamma, some of them are main, some of them are more common post-side, and it's a lot of investment to make this, where instead you could be going for cards like Qiaofeng, or not Qiaofeng, cards like Qixia, to add more engine or add sudden shift, and to just kind of play a little more safely, because this is a lot of resources. You're burning one of your Bosches in the extra deck, and you're also, like, it does load your grave, which is nice. So, like, I don't know how I feel about this. It plays around some hand traps, but my Ecclesia here, if this gets ashed or impermed, then it doesn't play around that at all. And I could have made the Qixia instead with the Tenyis. So it's a little unclear, like, is this good or am I overextending? And I think that's part of what the testing's for, you know, is we're trying to figure out when is this good to go for. So I'm going to tag out Ecclesia into Moye, revealing the Longyuan. Fortunately, he does not have a hand trap. So I get to summon a token and then go into the bread and butter. I draw a second Ash Blossom and then I add Sudden Shift. So pretty solid ending. I did say that I prefer to go Sudden Shift with my Qiaofeng openings. I probably could have used an Atara here because I have 2. I think I chose not to. An issue that I've been noticing with this deck is that you sometimes lack follow-up, because if you're adding a sudden shift off your Qixia and you have to, like, pop the Qixia, then you're not guaranteed, like, a follow-up for next turn. And depending on the hand, it can feel a little rough. And a very nice way to guarantee this follow-up is to use this Qixia to be banishing your cards like your Moye, your starters, and then you can recur them with your Atara, and it gives you a very secure way to reliably combo next turn. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm going to try to be doing it a little more often. So that's one reason I didn't do it this turn. He draws a Tidying, which is not the best, and then he goes to Black Metal and then Striker. I think I should have used Qixia to negate this, because I know that his Darkness Metal that he adds off the Black Metal is going to be able to crash with my Qixia. So I want to be, like, proactive with this negate instead of holding it too long. He adds Darkness Metal and Boot Sector, and then he Desires, and I believe I negate this Desires with an Ash. Desires is not at all common in Dragon Link decks, but he is playing 53 cards in this deck, and he's testing out a lot of weird cards, and so he's playing Desires as a way to just, like, compensate. That's why he's playing a bigger deck count, and he's also playing, like, ratios that accommodate Desires. So he's going to try to draw. I'm going to negate it because I've noticed during testing that this deck tends to kind of just spam monsters and then make a Verte Anaconda. And I think denying him of these monsters to spam is a good use of an Ash. So he summons Darkness Metal, tries to use the effect. I'm not going to negate this with Qixia, because, like I said, he can just crash this. He decides to crash it anyway, and then I think I can trigger Qiaofeng here to summon a Vishuddha from deck, because I just read a Dark Monster, but it just completely slips my mind and I forget. He sets Tidying and passes, so the Ash really paying off as a way to just stifle him from meaningful disruption. I draw a Dragon Sword, and then I activate the Rhoda, and he knows the game is over because I just have full combo, and so he scoops. So very straightforward game one. He opened kind of unfortunate, and I had the Ash for the right card. In game two, he goes first. He opens Apps Router, Rocket Synchron, Black Dragon, Noctivision, and Gamma, so pretty solid going first hand. And then my hand is again two Tenyis, two good Tenyis, and then Taya, Longyuan, and the Rhoda. So I would have preferred one of these be an Ecclesia to kind of special summon, or a hand trap, obviously. A hand trap would be great. But I am going to try to break whatever he sets up with just Engine, and we're going to see how that goes. So I'm going to fast forward through the Dragon Link combo because I think we've all seen this quite a couple times. He goes Chaos Ruler here, he hits 5, he does mill a Destiny Hero, and I'm going to get into this very shortly, don't worry about it. But I believe he plays 2 Dasher, so it's not like a hard brick, he has one more in his deck for a card you're going to see very shortly. He has back Silver, and then goes into Romulus, gets the draw, adds Dragon Ravine, and then does Baby Dragon stuff, gets Boot Sector off the Striker Dragon, and then he goes Pisty, and I think he tries to revive Synchron, and then changes his mind to Apps Router, and then later he changes his mind again and realizes that Synchron is better. Like I've said before, these are testing videos, and so we're usually in voice chat and just trying to determine what play is best, not like trying to win the game outright. In voice chat, I remember him saying here that he's massively overextending, which is true, but I don't have any kind of Nibiru to punish this, so he just goes ahead and establishes a Savage Dragon. And then I believe he goes Chaos Roller into Hot Red after this. And then because he has so many monsters, he can actually do a pretty cute play where he uses Striker Dragon to target the Silver Rocket, and then he uses the Silver Rocket's effect to look at my extra deck and banish a card from it. So this almost never sees use. I think the last time we saw this used was in like the early 2020 Rocket deck that Shenping played at the UDS. He's going to be able to lick my extra deck and banish a card, so he was deciding between this and Yazi, and he chooses to banish the level 10, which is pretty impactful because they're both one-ofs. He has a quick launch that he doesn't need, so he just extends with it and then makes a Verte Anaconda. And now we get to talk about the Destiny Hero Fusion Engine, which is becoming massively popular in the OCG because of this new card in Burst of Destiny, Destiny Hero Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. So this card is nuts. It needs a level 6 or higher hero monster, and then any Destiny Hero monster. So the cards that he's chosen to play are Dasher and Disc Commander. And then this card's actual effect is there's an attack debuff. So right now this is debuffing my cards by 600, so this is effectively a 3100 beater. And then its actual meaningful effect is a quick effect, which destroys, non-targeting, one card you control and one card on the field. And then, if Phoenix Enforcer itself is destroyed by anything, battle or card effect, you can activate its effect, and then it revives a Destiny Hero during the next standby phase. That includes itself. So this is a self-recurring beat stick that non-targeting pops something as a quick effect every turn, and this card is incredibly obnoxious. It is really sticky, it's hard to get rid of, and it can also just dismantle boards by itself. So this engine is catching on in popularity in the OCG massively because Fusion Destiny just summons this card for free. It's basically the same as Red Eyes Fusion, but there's a few key differences. Fusion Destiny is less restrictive than Red Eyes Fusion because you can activate this card at the end of your combo if you hard draw it. Whereas with Red Eyes Fusion, you basically have to make Verte Anaconda because if you activate Red Eyes Fusion, you're not going to do any other summoning that entire turn. So hard drawing Fusion Destiny is actually good because it lets you skip Verte. And then some other minor things, you play these 2 little Destiny heroes. I'll talk about these more, I think, next duel. And Fusion Destiny itself has a downside where you destroy the card you summon during the end phase of the next turn, but it literally does not matter for Phoenix Enforcer because it comes back. So this card has been very popular in the OCG. I've seen this splashed into like a dozen different decks, and it's just really strong. I expect it to be good in the TCG too. You should know that the OCG does not have Dragoon, but we do. But I think even despite the presence of Dragoon, this card has its own little niche, and may even see play if we get this card before banning Dragoon, if and when that happens, over on our side. So this is his end board. This is 4 disrupts. I draw the 6 card Ash. You gotta love to see it. And I go ahead and try to play through this. I add a Moye, and then I try to do Tenyi stuff. I think I do this too early. I should be summoning the Vishuddha first, and so we backtrack a bit. So I was summoning the Vishuddha first because there's no way for me to get it out otherwise. So I do that, and then I Long Yuan, and now I'm pressuring the same Yazi play as I mentioned in the Evil Twin replay, where I go Adhara off the Ashuna, and then I summon a Yazi. And although Yazi is worse into Hieratic Seal than my other options, because he can just bounce the Yazi, he does decide to get rid of a card here. So he uses the Phoenix Enforcer to pop the token, and then activates its effect to come back next turn. I link the Vishuddha into a monk, and he actually just bounces the monk with the Hieratic Seal. So he's basically denying my normal monsters from hitting the field, and so all my Tenyis are dead. He tries to float with Seal, and I Ash. This Ash is more to try to bait the Savage than anything else, but he doesn't bite. So I have to play through 2 Disrupts. I have only my normal summons left, and so that's not really going to do it. I normal Moye, Reveal Taya, and then he negates, and that is the end of the game. I think the game would have been a little closer if I had drawn an Ecclesia instead of one of those starters, but I think regardless, I'm probably in a losing position because he has a negate for either. So yeah. Heading into game 3 of this match, I have Dragon Sword, Nibiru, Moye, Ashuna, and Vessel. So again, opening Ashuna and Vessel, quite good. And the Nibiru is nice against the Dragon deck as well. The hand for Grand Lamb is going to be Token Collector, Pot of Desires, Lavioneer, Dasher, and Fusion Destiny. So again, opening one of the Garnets, kind of a drawback of this engine, but a nice upside of the Destiny Hero engine is that the Destiny Heroes themselves do a little more than the Dragoon Garnets, because the Dragoon Garnets are literal vanillas with no effects, but the Destiny Hero Garnets have effects. So this one, if you draw a monster card in your draw phase while Dasher's in your graveyard, you can special summon the monster that you just drew. So this can definitely come up, especially depending on what deck you're playing. So Dasher is one of the more common level 6s. The other is typically Malicious, but Malicious requires extra Garnets in your deck because you have to play 2 Malicious for it to have any use. So that's I would say not as common outside of like pure hero. Then as for the small heroes, there's a couple options. One is Destiny Hero Celestial for 2 draws. Another is Disc Commander for 2 draws, like later in the duel, because you can revive any Destiny Hero off of Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. So this hand again, I open the Xiaofeng combo and I opt to go for it. We are post side, so I'm a little more scared of cards like Nibiru. But this replay is going to show one of the problems with this combo is that you are extending quite heavily into this Light Xiaofeng, and I'm going to try to commit to a regular play, revealing my Rhoda and summoning a token, and I'm going to get Token Collected. So this is a card I've talked a lot about, but I haven't actually featured in a match up until now, and we're going to get to see how effective this card really is here. So Collector is going to kill my token, and then I have no play after this, so I can't Rhoda for anything useful, and then this Token Collector is going to be an issue for the rest of the game. Because I have to be able to permanently get rid of this to really start playing. And there are a couple ways to deal with a Token Collector, especially with the Tenyis. I think it's a lot harder to get rid of this in pure. With Tenyis, you can theoretically use cards like Bashia and Vishuddha and whatever to out this. But it requires kind of picking your poison, because making this Light Xiaofeng played around Nibiru, played around Gamma, but it doesn't play around Token Collector. And if I don't make this Xiaofeng, if I save my Tenyis to deal with a Token Collector, then I'm not playing around Nib and Gamma anymore. So you're really kind of picking your poison. It makes it very difficult to know exactly what you have to play around. And it can be very difficult, even in this Tenyi version that has cards like Vishuddha and Bashia, to deal with this Token Collector. For one, not only is it hard to choose what to play around, but two, the Token Collector is always going to do some work. It's always going to destroy a token, typically. So even if I out the Token Collector, I need a way to get another token on board to go into my Synchro. And that is, for example, in this hand, that is impossible, because I can't Dragon Sword for a Long Yuan, and there's nothing to discard. Additionally, I couldn't have added back any discard fodder because I didn't have a token. So definitely still a very annoying card, even in the Tenyi build. And now this Light Xiaofeng is the only thing stopping me from, or stopping this Dragon player from kind of doing whatever they want. So we're going to see if it's enough. So I'm going to pass here. I could have wrote it, I chose to held it. And then he's going to start with Desires. I have nothing here. Banishes 10, draws Tidying and Chamber, so not the best. Let's go to normal Chamber, grab another Tidying. And then I believe just slam Fusion Destiny. No, Striker Dragon first. So that is 2 summons. And then they're going to go straight into Verte. Right, so that's like another thing. You can kind of keep this Fusion Destiny. There was nothing to do with the token collector here, so he's going to go right into fusing from hand, going to the Phoenix Enforcer. I believe the extra copy of Dasher was banished. Let's check this out. Yeah, so 1 copy of Dasher was banished, so he did have to fuse from hand. Summons the Enforcer, and this is going to be actually very difficult for me to get rid of, because he's going to go into battle phase, attack my Moye, and then he's going to pop the Verte and the Xiaofang. I believe this is to play around me adding a card like Ghost Spell with Xiaofang, so that in later turns I can stop this from occurring itself. So he pops the Verte instead of itself. He keeps it on the field. I do get to add a tuner here off the Xiaofang, which is nice, but I don't play Bell in this list, and I don't side in Bell against this deck. So I just add an Ecclesia, and this is a huge problem for me now, because he has the 1 pop, which on its own is not that much of a problem. I have all my Tenyi set up. What is the problem is his collector, and now, even after I have all these Tenyi set up, it's going to be really difficult for me to get going. So I go Monk here, he's going to Phoenix Enforcer and get rid of it, and then he's going to activate Phoenix Enforcer to special summon himself back next turn, and I go Ecclesia, and I was going to go into a Moye. I realized I actually have no way of dealing with this collector. So, huge problem. What ends up happening is he pops the Monk, and all my Tenyis are now dead. And the only other way for me to make a Tenyi live is to either have another Tenyi in hand, or to summon a token so these Tenyis are live. But anytime I summon a token, he's going to just get Collector on the field. So this hand had absolutely no way of dealing with it, and I think it goes to show just how strong of a card this Collector is in this matchup. Even the Tenyi build, which has more counterplay against this card for sure, but definitely has, it's not an easy time to get over it. So that's going to end match 1. I'm going to go straight into the second match here. Just revealing the hands and then going to the next game. I think in voice chat we were just talking about how Token Collector is such an issue. And this next one's going to show a little different of a story, I guess, from game 1. I'm also going to be showing some of the ways you can have counterplay against Collector. But starting off with this hand for me is the same. If I had gone first, I would have had the full Tenyi combo with Xiaofang. Although at this point I was debating whether this is correct to go for, especially in game 1, because it may be too much of a commitment of resources. It may be better to go Xiao even and preserve starters for follow-up. Grand Lamb's hand is going to be Boot Sector, Silver Rocket, Black Metal, Safer, and Fusion Destiny. So I think a few too many normal summons here, and you never really want to open Boot. But opening Fusion Destiny is very nice, so I'm going to fast forward again through the full Dragon Link combo. We have seen this a billion times. I'm actually recording this the same day that Dragon Link just got second at the North American YCS, so this deck's still proving it's good, and of course, any deck that gets new toys like Fusion Destiny in later sets. I think Dragon Link is one of them that can use Fusion Destiny really well because of just how many monsters it summons, and the fact that Verte is dark and Phoenix Enforcer is dark, and so you don't care about the Dark Lock either. And then some really cute synergy, like being able to use Striker Dragon and Rocket Recharger to not only loop cards like Phoenix Enforcer, but you can also loop Disc Commander, which I think, a little extra synergy in this deck. So because you hard open the Fusion Destiny, he does not have to make Verte. He just goes for the standard kind of Steel Savage board. No Tidying in this case because LP is banned, and he wasn't able to access Tidying with his hand, but he goes Steel Savage, and then he has the Fusion Destiny at the end for Phoenix Enforcer. Another upside over Dragoon is that you don't have to keep cards in hand as discard fodder because the Phoenix Enforcer is just self-contained. There's no cost or anything. So just a nice addition to your end board. And then you have a fully set up graveyard, although there's not much, I guess, set up in this case. There's no Chaos Ruler, but you do have the Dasher for potential extension next turn. And this is 3 disrupts, so I have to play through this. My draw for turn is going to be Dragon Sword, which is really good. I'm going to start with Dragon Sword for Longyuan. So once again, this strategy of using Longyuan as a board breaker, I'm going to be trying it out in this game. So I activate Desires. I believe he thinks for a while on this one, and he decides he has to Savage this because my hands rely on opening a combination of 2 Tenyis, and so if you want to kind of stop that, ashing this or negating Desires is probably a good start because you're kind of minimizing the chances I have Tenyis that are synergistic. Unfortunately for him, I already did open 2 Tenyis, so negating this Desires in this instance was not that impactful. I also don't banish anything super bad. I put the Reborn back in for some of this testing after traumatizing myself by losing to not having the Reborn in the Evil Twin match. But this is banished here. Not a biggest deal though. So I go at Hara, and then I immediately go Longyuan. I pitch the Moye to try to go for this the Yazi play that I've demonstrated a couple times before. I discard Moye instead of Taya because it's likely I'm going to be trying to use a lot of my hand to trade into these disrupts, and there's a very high chance of Moye just not being live later in the turn, whereas Taya will always be live. So I choose to keep the Taya. Some of the token, he has to think here for a while because these 3 cards put a lot of pressure on. He's going to go with Phoenix Enforcer, popping, I believe, the Longyuan. Yeah, he gets rid of that. And now I go Vessel. He had the option to chain Hieratic Seal here and bounce the token, because if I don't control a non-effect monster on resolution of Vessel, I don't get to Rhoda a Tenyi. So I think that was something he could have considered. But then that does trade his last remaining disruption on just a token. And the other issue is that if he had done that, it would have been effective. You might be thinking, why didn't I just make Monk? And then him bouncing it would not matter because I would always have an non-effect monster. And what it's very easy to overlook in this deck is that the tokens do lock you into synchros. And that includes if the original card is no longer on the field. So as long as this token is on the field, I can't link summon. So I can't turn this into a Monk, which I think I tried to do in like 5 seconds. Yeah, so I try to make a Monk here. And then he points out to me in voice chat that I can't do this. So I have to go with the Adhara back on the field. I decide to go Ashuna here to summon a Vishuddha from deck, and this is going to force out an interaction, because if he doesn't seal right now, I'm going to make a Bashia. So he's forced to seal. He knows I have a Vishuddha in hand, so he just bounces the second Vishuddha back to my hand. And this is fine for me. So now I can use a Vishuddha from hand to like bounce the Savage, but because this has already been used, I don't feel like that's that necessary. My last card in hand is a Taya, so this hand was packed with extenders and engine cards, which is kind of expected because I opened no hand traps. I banish the Longyuan, summon a token, and then I get to go into the standard board-breaking combos. I go Basha here, I target both his monsters, I believe, and he chains Tracer. So he pops the Savage to get it engrave instead of putting it back in extra. And then he summons Rocket Caliber. This is also a new card, I think in Burst of Destiny. It is basically like a Crusadia monster. It summons to a zone a Dark Link points to, and that's pretty much the only reason you play it. It's also a tuner. I don't think you have to play this card in Dragons, but I think he was testing this card at the time. So Tracer goes back, Romulus falls off. And then I use Bashia. So I mill Ashuna with Taya, and then I use Bashia to pop the token and bring back the Moye that I discarded earlier with the Longyuan. I reveal the Vishuddha that he knows is in hand, summon a token here, and I go for Chixiao. So then I get to draw, and then I get to add. And this whole time, what I'm thinking about is how do I kind of stop this Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, because this is going to come back in the next standby phase. And one thing I think I was trying to go for up until this point was I was trying to make a Xiangjian, because Xiangjian would actually come up in this case. It would banish the Phoenix Enforcer once it pops itself. And what I overlooked was that I had used Ashuna already this turn, so I'm completely worm locked. So I think I tried to make Xiangjian here, and then I realized I'm worm locked. I put them back. And I just go battle phase, and I attack over his monster. So I don't really out the Phoenix Enforcer per se, but I do out the entire board. And then the Phoenix Enforcer itself has to be enough to kind of kill me, which it's not going to be. So I go make a Monk here. I do this to make the Adhara live, I believe. And I get to add back the Longyuan. So I have 2 Longyuans now, which could be better. But I set the sudden shift, and the Monk is nice fodder for the sudden shift. He's going to draw Noctovision, which is not helpful in this case. He gets back the Phoenix Enforcer and then tries to attack over my Chixiao, because this has a attack debuffing effect. So the Chixiao is actually only 24 right now. Naturally, I use the Chixiao to try to negate, and then he chains the Phoenix Enforcer to destroy itself and my Bashia. And then this will come back in the next standby. Rather, he kills the Chixiao and he leaves the Bashia up, which is fine. During my standby, this comes back, and then he's forced to kind of preemptively pop the Bashia, or else I'll just revive a starter. And And then he activates his effect, and then the problem here is I just have too much. I just summon a Tenyi, and then use another Tenyi. This gives me level 8 access, and then he knows I have the Xiangjian in hand, so this game is over, and he will just forfeit after seeing all that. So yeah, showing how you can kind of still break through these boards with Tenyi cards. This was a game 1, by the way, so now we're going to go into game 2, post side. I'm going to again have 2 Tenyis and Vessel, plus Ash and Ecclesia, so super nice. I think I'm getting a little luckier than normal, opening like a Tenyi plus another useful Tenyi in these games. Again, I think I said in the combo video, you should be only opening this around 40% of the time, and I'm definitely opening it a little more than that in these games in particular. Grand Lamb's hand is going to be Levianeer, Driver, Chamber, Gamma, and Collector. So really not what you want to see going first, but the Collector put in a ton of work in the first match, so we'll see if we can do the same here. He's going to go Chamber, and Tidying, and then he's going to go, I think, just set one and pass. I think his big debate at this point was whether he wanted to go for Striker Dragon or not, because I had been throwing the gates at Striker Dragon in the past, in this match. So if I had like a Veiler or an Ash or something, I would typically try to just hit the Striker Dragon because he's playing 53, and it would stop a lot of rocket access. What's the theory, at least? So in retrospect, that may have been better. I think he decided to pass because he wants to bounce this back with the Tidying, but it would actually have been better to make a Striker here, because he can always revive the Chamber with the Tidying Engrave, so like it didn't matter. So I'm going to start with the Shuna, go into my Tenyi stuff as normal. He's going to immediately Tidying back to Tenyi, and return this Dragon Maid to hand. I have another Tenyi though, so my hand is, excellent through the Tidying. And this is really a strength of the Tenyi engine. You're not going to see this with the pure build, because where your your pure cards get bounced by Tidying, and then you have really only Xiangjian as follow-up, whereas Tenyis can just pressure out a lot of removal on your normal monsters. So I still have Vessel through this, which is excellent for me. And I'm going to go into the same Tenyi combo. And in this case, I know that he has played Token Collector against me in previous matches. This is not really something you would typically have knowledge of, but an option you have here is to go into Draco Berserker of the Tenyi instead of Xiaofang. And so I experiment with that this game. The reason Draco Berserker is good is because this always beats Token Collector. It banishes the... when a monster's effect activated by your opponent, you can banish the monster. So it doesn't negate the effect, so this doesn't beat Nibiru or Veiler, but it does get rid of the card itself, so it not only beats Token Collector, but it also beats Gamma, or any one of these on their own. And you would go for Berserker in particular to beat Token Collector. So again, it's kind of like a pick your poison, right? Like, which card are you going to play around with this hand? And I decide to experiment during this match, because that's what you should be doing during a match, is experimenting to kind of see how useful this card is. This leaves the Monk on field, so I go to Battle Phase here, because I figure if he has a Nib, he's going to feel forced to drop it before taking 4,000 damage to the face. So this is another nice way to play around Nib, quote unquote, is you just use your Tenyis to kind of experiment and poke out there. I could have also made a Chixiao instead of the Berserker here, and just relied on my Tenyis and to get me Chixiao and sudden shift access. In main phase 2, I summon Ecclesia because at this point I feel like he doesn't have Nib. If he had it, he would have used it in main phase 1, which is maybe wishful thinking. But I summon this anyway. I go Ecclesia into Taya, and I use Taya to banish another Ashuna, I think, summon a token. And he's going to go Collector here. I'm going to chain Berserker. He's going to chain Gamma, and then I'm going to Ash's Gamma. And this is where he was saying if he had summoned Striker Dragon last turn and I had Ashed the Striker Dragon, which honestly I probably would have Ashed the Striker Dragon, this would have resolved and this game would have suddenly turned massively in his favor. Even though his hand is still pretty bricky, this would have been a very different game if he had managed to resolve this Gamma. But instead I have the Ash for it. Token Collector is banished, so the Draco Berserker is nice because this removes this from the game permanently, whereas your other cards aren't really doing that. Like your Vishuddha is just turning it to hand. I guess Bashia does also kind of more or less take it out permanently for the time being. I grab back Ashuna, and then I go into Chixiao, and then I use Chainlink 2 Taya to protect the Chixiao from the Gamma that I know he has. So I dump, I dump a Moye, and then I add Sudden Shift, and then I pass on Sudden Shift Imperm, and I have the Berserker as a banish, and I have Chixiao as a negate. He does Tracer for turn, which I don't think is good enough. He starts with Tidying. He summons this from hand. This could have been summoned from grave, so again, I think making Striker turn 1 would have been better. He gets Tidying here. And then makes Striker, gets Striker. I think I negate this with Chixiao. Summons Tracer, goes into Verite Anaconda. And at this point, I can even let him just summon Phoenix Enforcer, because I know that I can out this with Draco Berserker. If he ever activates the effect, I can just activate this, and it'll get banished. So that'll take it out of the game permanently, although I would be trading a couple cards to do it. But I don't have to wait for that, because I do have an Imperm set, so I just flip Imperm, and it more or less ends the game on the spot. He summons Levy, returns my Shuna back. I banish the Levy with Berserker, and then he reveals the Gamma on the driver, and then the Tidying. He knows this game is unwinnable, and so he forfeits. And yeah, so two very different matches, kind of showcasing different uses of cards like Token Collector and the Destiny Hero engine, and ways that the cards, like the Tenyi cards, can play around these. So this was a fun match. I was very impressed by the Destiny Hero engine during this match. I know I only showed 2 matches, but in a couple other ones, I think I get destroyed in them. Like he just like does dragon stuff and then summons a Phoenix Enforcer at the end or through hand traps, and I can't keep up. So a lot of those are a lot more boring than the ones I showed here, but I was impressed by the engine. I think I will be trying a weirder version of pure Swordsoul that splashes the Destiny Hero engine, so you may see that in a replay in the future. I will post a deck list for that if you're interested. But yeah, apart from that, I hope you enjoyed this series of 2 matches. There's going to be at least 1 more of these replays coming to the channel, so stay tuned. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Leave any feedback in the comments. Peace.